In this episode of Cloud Performance Atlas, I help some IoT devices find their long-lost friends. Is friendship the best configuration for performance? Stay tuned to find out. One of the big challenges with IoT devices is that there's a tendency for each device to use a different set of protocols for communicating with other devices around them. This is where IOT Exchange comes in. Their product is somewhat like a dating app for IoT devices, where a device can find other local devices that communicate on similar protocols. Their system was running on a federation of VMs inside of Google Cloud using persistent disks to host relational databases that they were using to keep everything in sync. Sadly, after some profiling, they realized they weren't getting the performance they wanted out of the disk itself. Now, if you remember, persistent disks are the ones that aren't physically attached to your host VM hardware, and they come in two flavors, standard and SSD, that each one has their own performance characteristics, which, unsurprisingly, matters a lot for your usage configuration. Now, for persistent disks in general, performance scales as a function of the size of the disk. The bigger it is, the faster it is. We can see here that for a standard persistent disk, the IOPS and throughput scale pretty well in relation to the size of the disk. SSD persistent disks show the same behavior, although the numbers are significantly higher. However, SSD persistent disks also have performance scale with the number of the CPUs that the VM has, or as the docs say, SSD persistent disk performance scales linearly until it reaches either the limits of the volume or the limits of each compute engine instance. Which was where the IoT Exchange folks were running into trouble. Their VMs didn't have enough CPUs for the IOPS they needed to their SSD PDs. By moving them from 8-core to 32-core machines, they saw their IOP performance almost double. You gotta love it when data saves the day. If you'd like to know more about today's topic, check out the article listed in the description below, and don't forget to check out the rest of our Cloud Performance Atlas content on YouTube, because when it comes to performance, every millisecond counts.